why don't you start us out since my interview person had to bail on me? I don't think you've even introduced yourselves in the forums.
Well, actually, yeah, I actually built out the forum. I haven't done a formal introduction, but I've been planning to do a response to Anson's Humans of Numerai, and I'm not going to give away what I was planning to post there. But anyways, I joined Numerai earlier in the year. I work with Anson at Uber, actually. And so a lot of the stuff that I work on is a lot of the backend infrastructure. I built out the forum, some of the single sign-on, the whole single sign-on aspect of it. And what I'm working on right now is blending kind of rolling out our multiple account support. So a lot of that stuff has been happening under the covers for a while. And it's kind of imminent. It's going to be rolling out very soon. Some of our APIs, like Omni Analytics and UAs, they've actually pushed out API updates that are going to support the multiple account stuff. So things are happening. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer stuff like that. So
very cool. So you get to answer some questions because I keep this handy list that I've been using for a couple of weeks now. So you're the next victim. I'm going to guess that you found out about Numerai from Anson.
Yes.
So that was my question. How did you find out about Numerai? So since we know who, why don't you tell us the how? Did he call you? Did you have coffee? Did you have a beer? Like, what was the circumstance behind
that? Interesting. Yeah. So Anson and I were on the same team at Uber in mapping, and he was really getting into crypto at this point, and he was like trying to buy some Ripple or something, and I had gotten into crypto a few years earlier and was part of the initial Ripple whatever giveaway. And I was like, oh, I think I have some Ripple. Anyways, I ended up giving him some Ripple. He gave me some I think he had an Anson token that he was working on, just a little token that he had. So we kind of connected over the crypto stuff. And then when he decided to join Numerai, that's when I first heard about it, when he left. And I stuck around at Uber for probably another year and a half after that. But we had sort of stayed in touch, and then he and I sort of synced up and kind of gave me the pitch on sort of where they were. Erasure had just launched, and so that kind of sparked my interest, and I joined earlier in the year.
Great, that's awesome. So you live in San Francisco?
No, I live in the East Bay, in Berkeley, actually.
Okay, so but you're still on the West Coast, fairly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you working in the office before we all got sent home?
Yep.
Okay.
I was. I have a wife and 2 kids, and we had just gotten a puppy right before this thing. So he's been having a good time with all the attention and everything. So I don't know what he's going to do when we go back to work.
A puppy. Well, I'm not sure I would want to deal with a puppy 24/7. I kind of like the ability to leave for a while so that somebody else can deal with it. So you're an engineer at the team. That's what you do for a living. What do you do when you're not working?
I was really into martial arts. So primarily Aikido and some Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. With the whole COVID thing, it's really hampering on that. So, it's funny, my dojo, we do Zooms, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And other than that, like I like to build stuff, a lot of woodworking, concrete repairs around the house, things like that.
Gotcha. So what programming language do you use and why?
Right now I do a lot of Elixir. JavaScript is another popular one, and then Python. Those are probably the 3 main languages that I spend most of my time in.
Makes sense. Have you participated in the tournament to this point?
I've got, not really. I mean, I have like kind of my own little integration test that I'm mainly using for making sure that all the changes I'm making aren't breaking things.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I don't have any serious models that I'm working on or anything like that.
All right. So, who's your favorite team member? I'm gonna guess Anson.
Well, my favorite team member at Numerai?
Yep.
I would say probably NJ.
There we go. The race is on.
She's a boss.
Anson got a vote. NJ has a vote. My cat's on my countertop. Get off of here, cat. Damn cat. Yeah, so finally we have some people picking. That's good. Any tips for handling the quarantine with grace?
Yeah, you know, just make sure to get some. I like to do a little bit of stretching, kind of some yoga type stuff, just to get the blood flowing in the morning, and then coffee seems to help me. Yeah,
coffee's pretty good. I've been taking walks in the morning because it's too hot in the evening here. I'm in South Florida, in case you didn't know. But this morning it was like 78 degrees Fahrenheit, and by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, we'll be in the high 80s Fahrenheit. It's just too hot to walk at night, so try to do it in the morning. Richard, I have to know why you're not social distancing with your chief engineer.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of us here. There's like four or five people at the office today.
That's good to hear.
I think it's okay to come if you don't expect other people, but a lot of people came today.
I think things are starting to lift a bit. So I just saw Anson squeeze in your square, so I wanted to find out what the deal was there.
Yeah, he's here. We've been working today on some stuff.
Cool. That's great. So normally I would ask Patrick what your #1 feature request or improvement for the tournament would be, but since you're working on one, maybe you can just tell us a guesstimate of release date on SAM.
Sorry, Sam?
Yeah, the single account model.
Yeah,
I think that's
we have a couple different code names for that, but yeah. So the plan is to have a kind of a really light beta rollout, probably with a couple select folks, and then open it up to the rest of the tournament user base. So this is imminent. It's probably going to start next week. I'm just a couple of loose ends that I'm tying up. So yeah, expect a forum post from me soon that's going to outline sort of what happens with accounts, how they get absorbed. You know, you're going to have to, if you have any USD in your wallet, you're going to have to drain that from the account before you can actually absorb it. How NMR gets transferred when you absorb accounts, and then how the API keys and how you have models and stuff. So expect a forum post from me very soon, and then we'll roll out as soon as. I mean, I expect the beta period to be pretty short. So.
Well, that's great. Thanks for working on that. I'm pretty excited for it. Kino's saying show the puppy. I agree. We need to see pics of the puppy.
Okay, hold on.
Pics or it doesn't exist. Oh, there's a puppy. NJ is melting.
His name is Espresso.
I see it. I see it. NJ.exe has stopped. Well, thanks
Patrick,
for that.
That's going to go in the spare office when we're back at the office. Just saying.
Yep, that's great. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. So there's so many questions. I think I should just hop in on this. And besides, HB couldn't show up, so I can't interview him. So thanks for filling in on the short notice there, Patrick. I appreciate that. And I'll pick on somebody else next week, I guess. Oh, Zen's back. I see you muted down there. Thanks for joining again. Appreciate your visit last week. So Kino's got the top question right now. How would you neutralize a model, example XGBoost, against the meta model? Well, the problem is we don't really know what the meta model is. But apparently I am the meta model. And so I guess I could sell my weekly predictions to people to help them neutralize against my model. I've thought about that. I haven't come up with the fee structure yet. No, I'm just kidding. I really don't have an answer for that, because unless they give us some way to accurately neutralize against a set of predictions, we're going to have to use proxies for the meta model. I imagine a scenario where it would be useful for a person to target the meta model. In other words, to create your own model that you think is the best approximation of the meta model, and then not submit it. And I say not submit it because my model is so closely correlated with the meta model that my MMC is awful. And so the payoff for me with the MMC or the regular tournament is about the same. So I'm a little bummed about that, but I think overall it's a tremendous boost to how this will all work. But neutralizing against a model that you create that approximates the meta model performance, I think would be useful. I just don't know how long that would take. I mean, anybody done any analysis as to like what kinds of models are being used? Like, I know, Michael Oliver, you've experimented with quite a few things. Have you seen groups of users that correlate with some of your testing stuff?
Not a ton. I haven't looked too much into how other users are correlated with things I'm doing. I mean, there's definitely a lot of models that are pretty close to each other that have very high correlation with the meta model also. I mean, probably just variants of XGBoost and whatnot. Yeah, the interesting thing I posted in the chat that seems to be true is that linear models seem to have their MMC and their score seems to be pretty highly correlated, and which is kind of interesting, and maybe that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, just the couple linear models that I'd had for tracking sort of regimes, their MMC and their scores are very highly correlated, as was like Madmin and Mad Max, and the Flurry, the team's linear model too. It's also the case. That's one of the more interesting things I've found looking at other people's models. You can sort of tell who has a linear model just by looking at that.
Yeah, and I think last week I talked about how I believe there's like 3 types of models: linear, tree-based, and neural nets. And then beyond that, like however you subset the features or the eras, that kind of defines the performance in the space. So I would imagine the meta model is some combination of the 3. I just don't know the proportions. So I guess to clone the meta model, you would have to find out the proportion of each model type, and you could probably get pretty close. So like there's 200 XGBoost, 100 neural nets, and 50 linear models. Just make that weights and then create some kind of weighting system in an average model. That's the best that I could guess on that. So yeah, without actually having the meta model to neutralize against it, there's no pure way. I believe Mike has suggested that we just use integration test, but I think we can do better because that still is about 10% away. I think my peak correlation is like 96%. So I'm really close, but I'm still not all the way there. Madmin Drama. Yes, there's been lots of drama. Thoughts on top model being engineered to cheat and not to predict well, and plus the pragmatism of banning the top MMC contributor to hedge fund performance. So I have been around a long time, and I quit because I thought people were cheating for months at a time. I did that twice, actually. I don't like it at all when people try to exploit the tournament. It's not in the spirit of it, right? So I'm one of those people who, when I play a sport, I try to follow the rules as they're written, and I don't try to invent ways to get around the rules because I don't feel that that's appropriate. So when I look at this through my lens and my bias, that's how I'm viewing it. Is this person operating in the spirit of the competition, or are they purposely trying to find a way to extract rent? And when I see that happening, I get upset. And so if you want to have a nice rabbit hole to fall down, several days of reading probably, is go on the bot hunting channel and scroll to the top and follow it all the way down. That's been around for a very long time. And you'll see that there's a subset of users who have actively chased the exploiters. And I think that most of us are still around. So I don't like somebody who creates a model that doesn't actually contribute to the hedge fund, because that in the long run hurts all of us. Because if Numerai's model does very well, then they will be able to attract AUM. If they attract AUM, payouts will increase. If payouts increase, we're more profitable. If we're more profitable, then we're happy. So I want that positive feedback loop to have zero interference. And I personally feel that people who are exploiting the rules are hurting all of us. And this whole code is law concept is completely new to me, because I'm not a computer science person. I study finance. So yeah, that's been a paradigm shift for me to kind of bend my head around this whole concept of code is law, because I don't think you can anticipate all possible eventualities. So while there's still humans involved, I have no problem with intervention from the team to kind of set things straight. And I think it's called for and justified. Now, the fact that that model was the top MMC contributor is very interesting. Not only was it the top MMC, it was also #1 on the leaderboard. That's just very interesting. So it's my interpretation of what was written today by Mike, that in fact that model is performant, although the person behind the model designed other accounts to neutralize the risk. If it's actually good, then the backtests will show it. Now, I've always wondered if the team would attribute backtest performance to an individual user. And if they're spinning off backtests that are completely wonky and should never make it to production, like, why not send a message, hey, your model sucks. Like, we did all this backtesting and the actual results are horrendous. You should redo it. Or you could wait 20 weeks and find out, right? Like, I don't know. For some instances, I think it's okay to tell us if our backtests are horrendous. So if Madmin's backtest is awful, and I don't know, nobody's told me, but it seems like Mike said that it's a high variance model. So if the backtest is awful, then why not tell us, like, hey, your backtest is atrocious, you're overfit or something's going on. And so that if we have this spurious period of time where we're actually performing well, we'll know that that's not going to last forever, because I don't think it will. So that's my long-winded answer of dancing around the Madmin drama. TLDR, intervention's good, cheating's bad. And I think, Bor, your question got bumped up while I was talking. So Bor's asking, what kind of risk management would fit well with staking numeraire? Risk of ruin, and frequently take out some NMR from your stack. What else? So Bor, you actually direct messaged me on Rocket Chat and asked me about this. And I said that there's a ton of different ways, and you need to design your own system and follow it. So this is something that I talk about with my students, because they come to me and say, hey, I just got my student loan money. What stock should I invest in? And I just want to lose my mind every time I hear that, because it's just unbelievable. But I do say, okay, if you're going to trade, put an amount in your account that you're willing to lose, because your first year of trading is your tuition. You'll probably lose all of it, but along the way, you're going to learn a lot. It's the same amount of work to manage $2,000 as it is $2 billion, because when you have money at risk, you lose the same amount of sleep. You're checking the markets just as much, and you're doing the same level of tweaking that you would no matter the dollar amount. So when it comes to risk management, that's a very personal thing. But if you design a system, you need to follow it. So for instance, in an investment account, I would tell my students, look, like a simple risk management would be to sell a stock if you gain 20%, no matter what. And if you lose more than 7%, cut your losses, get out. right? So but that's a simple way of managing risk. It's probably not very robust, especially if you're in a highly volatile stock. You get shaken out within the first hour. However, if you look at it in terms of Numerai, if you stake on models, you want to have your total risk, the aggregate risk, like let's say you have 10 accounts, your aggregate exposure is 200 Numerai, so you do 20 per. If you double that, maybe you should take some off. I don't know, like there's no pure answer. But if in this MMC environment, we're trying to look for models that are not highly correlated. And so that will certainly factor in, because now we get into mean variance optimization. I just don't know if that will translate directly. But for me, I just pick a number and I'm like, if it goes over this, I'm withdrawing profit. If it dips below, I'll ride it. Maybe I'll fund more if it gets to a 25% drawdown. So it's an individual perspective that you look at. But I do think you need to tie the fiat value into it as well, because not only do you have total Numerai exposure, but you have a fiat balance involved too. So we had a 6x run in fiat equivalency. Your risk increased 6x on the fiat side, and you didn't do anything, right? But then you add Numerai gains inside of that, and so it does require a response. The best thing you can do is to design a system and follow it. If you deviate from your own rules, then you're gambling. And I don't believe that gambling is the way to manage risk. What criterion should one consider when choosing the stake on MMC or on correlation? Or generally, does it make sense to allow staking on correlation? It's too new. I think it's too soon to talk about staking MMC or on correlation. That one's a wait and see, because I had some crazy high scores on correlation, like 12% 3 weeks in a row almost. I don't think I've ever seen a score that high on MMC side, but just the same as you can go up, you can go down. So I'm just going to take a better look at it. But I would probably look at my MMC after a month. And if I had indication that while all models are doing well, I'm also getting a high MMC, that probably is your clue. And then also look at burns. If everybody's burning, how did your model do relative? So that's what we used to look at, 10, 12 months ago. We used to see, like, where were you in the burn group? Were you among the worst burn, or were you closer to the middle? And so you can kind of check to see how your variance is against other people. That takes time. The results are slow. It takes a minute to get there. So patience, and pick one and stick with it for a while. What are the differences between the various integration test accounts? Great question. I recall Jason telling me that the integration test accounts were the same example model, but submitted on different days of the week to test the system. I don't know if that's still true. I don't think Jason's on. Jason?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, that is true.
Jason?
Exactly what
Jason's here. Awesome. Well, I'm going to pick on you next week. You better come back.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so that's what you're doing. You're just submitting the example predictions on a different day?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the only difference.
That's what I thought.
five.
I kind of recall you telling me that
Seven accounts?
last time I was in town. Say that again, please.
Aren't there 7 accounts though? That's 5 days in the week, right? So
You can
Aren't there
still submit
7?
on a Sunday and a Monday, though.
Yeah, we still submit on the days that don't score. Just it's a daily integration test just to make sure that the system's functioning is all it's testing.
gotcha. Thank you.
I find it interesting that the different integration tests change in rank. Same predictions, but it seems to matter what day you submit it on. Oh, I think integration test 7 got ahead of one of the other ones for a little while. Can you create virtual eras to simulate a financial crash or an economic boom or whatever? I'd like to know how my model fights against all odds. If only we could create such a thing. We don't know for sure what any of the targets or the feature columns represent. And so to create some synthetic data point, I don't think that's possible. It would require the team to do it for us. But honestly, I'm not sure I care. I just want my model to be good on average, right? And so seems like we all did pretty good through the COVID-19 sell-off, right? Correlations all went to 1 for all asset categories, and we all recovered very well. So it seems like, on average, we're doing pretty good. But definitely ask in the feedback channel as a suggestion, and maybe see if they'll do some synthetic data points. I don't think that will happen, but you never know. If you ask really nice, sometimes they do surprise you. Joe wants to know, would you recommend using the data from previous rounds for training and validation? Well, there isn't any data from the previous rounds. The training doesn't change. The validation hasn't changed, except we got more of it. And while it's asked a lot, people ask all the time if the old tournament data can be turned into training data, it would just cause us to overfit. I don't want more data. I think what we have is just fine, as long as it's representative of the market regimes. See you, NJ. So yeah, I don't recommend it because model stationarity is pretty important, and any kind of data that you do add incrementally will change your model. I think this is a good question. What's the mean correlation and standard deviation of the meta model on live eras? Does it have a fat left tail? Oh, Richard. Where'd Richard go? There he is.
Does what have a fat tail?
So does the meta model have a fat tail?
I mean, it has a tail. I don't know. I don't think it's...
So I guess
if you look at on an era basis, everything is, you know, you can look at the training data and look at the different results of every eras, and there are some eras where things go really badly wrong. But I wouldn't say it's like catastrophic. It's kind of in the distribution normally.
I would just have to guess that it's going to follow the distribution of returns for equities. It would just make sense that it would. If you're trading on equities, I would imagine that your return series is going to be similar. But I'll let your non-answer stand.
I mean, you guys are not buying a particular equity ever. You know, you're submitting predictions on the entire market, so
right.
It's very much normal because of all the different predictions.
I see some head nods, so I'm gonna let that one. I'll take that. Do we know if the new MMC2 will basically work the same as the current reputation bonus? MMC2 bonus will be based on 100 days ago stake. Well, I don't recall there being a bonus at all. So I think it's just your performance on a round without a bonus, period.
Yeah, there's anything that you make that goes kind of like back in time, and is going to have the same kinds of problems we've seen with Madmin. So everything should kind of be on a going forward basis.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, and on your current stake.
Mm-hmm. I think Zen's pretty happy with the changes based on those payout curves. I would be too, by the way.
Yeah.
He's smiling. He's like, yeah, bring on MMC, baby.
Yeah, it looks really good. Check the box.
Yeah, he can't wait. I'm a little jealous, not gonna lie, because I don't have very high MMC. I just have that stability that I like. But yeah, without a bonus is fine, especially with the 2x multiplier on performance. I think that's a big incentive. And I'll be interested to see if, since there isn't this rolling bonus approach, how the users will respond. So will we have MMC chasers? Like, will people switch from, like, we see this in mining in Bitcoin, right? Between Bitcoin Cash and all the other various iterations. At first, the miners would switch to the more profitable blockchain, right? So I wonder if users will flip from XGBoost to a neural net week to week to kind of chase where the uniqueness lies. It's my hunch that there's 3 basic models, right? And I said this earlier. And so if that's true, I wonder if we'll all just kind of leap back and forth between the 3 different modeling types, or we'll stumble into different subsets of errors like Bohr's doing, or we'll come up with some blend therein. I think it'll be very interesting. Yeah, I think that kind of does get away from the stationary desire that's been around for a while now. Is optimizing sharp the best way to reach a high MMC without resorting to hackish methods like Madmin? I don't know. I have no idea, because I don't optimize sharp. Anybody want to try to answer that question?
What do you optimize?
I optimize the correlation, and that's about all I'd like to say.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I do keep it simple.
You optimize your performance on the target.
Yes, the objective function is achieved. Apparently, yes. So I don't optimize sharp. I can't answer that. Has anybody done that and has a production model that's willing to speak on that?
For a while, I was optimizing my expected payout, and it ended up getting. And I also tried optimizing sharp, and it ended up getting very similar answers, actually, which was kind of comforting. But yeah, I tried it both ways.
Bor, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, in an older version, at some point, I was optimizing the payout function basically, rather than anything in between. And that also seemed to work, but it was like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's indeed what is it? Sharp minus feature exposure that I'm optimizing. This is a cost function.
Yeah, I think you want to have both, though, right? You want stability through the eras, but you also want high MMC. And so I'm going to say that just picking one thing probably is not the best way to do that. I don't think my models are very good. I think that they're just stable. And that stability gives me the opportunity to kind of ride among the top 100 all the time, instead of having sudden drops out of the leaderboard and rushes to the top. So I think that's been my edge from the outset, is that my model is extremely stable and reliable over time. But if people have the same stability and performance, they'll be above me all the time. So I'm hoping that doesn't occur. And that, because then I'm going to have to change stuff and do a lot of work. That's really the bottom line. I just don't want to do all the work. So I would say optimize sharp, sure, why not? But do try to stay consistent, and MMC will follow. And I think once we flip on the switch for this MMC stuff, a lot of people are going to change models. And so not doing anything could actually pay off in MMC. Because if a majority of users flip to some new modeling method, then your MMC may increase just as a result of that through no action of your own. And so there is a subset of users who will benefit from not changing anything. And there's a subset of users who will chase MMC and be paid for that. So I'm of the latter group. I'm not going to chase MMC. I'm hoping that other people will diverge from my methodology. There appears to be several of us. And if that's the case, then my performance should increase. Hopefully. We'll see how that works. It will be a nice feature to stake on other users' models. Do you plan such a feature? No, that will never happen because of regulation, and lawyers are bad. We don't want lawyers. So no, sorry, I don't think that'll ever happen. It's been asked before, and it's always come down to it's much too much like gambling or something. How could you regulate that? No, I don't think that'll happen. Does feature interactions make sense for feature engineering? Well, if you think about it, tree models take interactions into account, and those are very performant in the tournament. So yeah, I do think that feature interactions matter. Would I want to try to create my own? I have tried that before very, very early in the tournament, and it never worked out. But this was like, geez, 3 years ago. I haven't done it since, but sure, I think interactions make total sense. I don't know if the way the data is constructed now, if it's conducive to like actually create your own features, because the tree-based models do it on their own, right? Like, is this branch greater than this? You know, I don't know exactly how to describe it. That's like a CS major kind of thing. But my understanding is that the tree-based models do that, and so do neural nets. Should you z-score the features by eras before interaction? Well, now you're getting into the weeds, sir. Getting a little technical on that. A neural net for finding which new features to use. Maybe Bohr probably has the line on answering this question because of how complex his genetic algorithm is. So I'll let him not answer the question if he chooses.
So I'm building a simpler genetic algorithm at the same time, so I missed part of the question.
No, that's okay.
Because
He was asking about z-scoring features by era before the interaction, or using a neural net to find which new features to use, like iterating across for feature engineering purposes.
The most interesting thing I do now is just I run my model once and I get like a population of solutions, and I check which features are sort of getting the highest feature correlation, and I exclude those from the next model run. So I do that, like iterate a few times, and then basically take the average of all these models together. So that is, and yeah, all what you said, like neural networks, all these things do some kind of feature engineering by themselves already.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But you don't create new features by combining or like multiplying two features together or taking a ratio.
Yeah, I do those kind of things, but I let like it's a formula. The genetic algorithms build a formula, so they do it for me in a way, and then whichever combinations work for that particular solution. Is it something different than a neural network would do? I think a neural net can still sort of get those kind of relationships if you build it deep enough.
Well, yeah. I hope you have a lot of dropout though, because that sucker's gonna overfit like crazy.
Yeah, I drop out 30% of. It's too complex anyways. I'm trying to make something simpler, but
that's what I'm saying. I'm out on all this complex stuff. I don't do anything like that. Pyquan says it'd be nice to be able to submit a model and get an immediate MMC backtest result. Yeah, but then people will exploit it. I mean, anytime that they've done something where we can get fast information, it just gets exploited, because then all you have to do is like move one observation up, leave everything else at 0.5, then move another one up, leave everything else at 0.5, and you can kind of sniff out what's going on, you know.
We could. I mean, one thing we're going to do, I think, you know, when you upload a prediction, it gives you your validation chart and stuff. And we could show a few new things there, such as what is your correlation after we neutralize your model by the example predictions? And if that has correlation that's positive with the target, that's a pretty strong sign that you have some MMC. So showing a few things like that could be helpful. So it's not like we're giving you a backtest over the test set, but some information over the validation sets could help you decide, oh yeah, maybe I should go MMC with this one.
Yeah, it's so tough. Somebody said in chat, I can't remember who said it, but why not take the max of MMC or correlation? And I did a little workbook in Excel and looked at it, and I would love to do that, but it just seems like you only ever get a good outcome. And so I don't think it'd be very profitable for Numerai to pay us on that. But
yeah, we really want to know that people believe they have MMC. So we want them to stake if they believe they have it. And so, yeah, if you just applied your stake as the max of either of them or something, we don't know what you believe. And then we will get people with MMC, but they might be kind of by chance or whatever. So I like that it's very focused. If you want to play MMC, your whole stake is going to apply to that.
Yeah, so although I would love to be able to like take the max, yeah, it's probably not going to happen, and that makes sense. That's fair. The signaling theory is dependent upon the fact that you put something at risk, right? Either your reputation, financial risk, or your time. You know, if you get a university degree, it's supposed to be a signal that you're willing to do the work. Not everybody gets a degree. That's why it has value, right? And so if you could just get the best of whatever's going on. You didn't really pick anything. You don't really have the signal. So yeah. Okay, so do Richard and Slyfox have their own models in the tournament, and what are their names?
I don't. I never really have put one in, but it's mainly because I am lazy, and I actually do want to put a few more in, but get Anson maybe or someone to make sure that they all hooked up to compute and or just run automatically every week. But we do there actually is a model that is one of ours, which I was going to mention in the era boosting post I wrote, which I would recommend. You haven't seen that on the forum.
It's very interesting. We'll talk about that later.
This model, Sugaku, you've probably seen it around, is actually one of a Numerai employees model that used some of the era boosting ideas. But it's not only that, so I didn't want to like confuse everyone and say, well, this is an example of performance. But it does use some of those ideas, and it's definitely had a very consistent score.
That's ranked 73 right now, by the way.
Yeah.
Cool. So I see Anson's logged in, but I don't know if he's paying attention. Slyfox, do you want to admit to your tournament performance, sir? Nope, he doesn't want to own it. That's fine. But I would tell you, Richard, that while you like Sugaku, that's all good. My students ranked higher. My students ranked 68 compared to your rank 73. So
Sugaku means math in Japanese, by the way.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Does it make sense to optimize some of your models for correlation and others for MMC, or is correlation something we should forget already? Well, I think that goes back to my comment earlier that you should still try to do both, because you want your model to be consistent across time, but also to have MMC. And I think the answer to that is to build a performant model that is good across all eras and is relatively stable. And then you have a little bit more faith in the model that it'll do well. You don't necessarily have to pick at that point because you know it's a good model, so you could pick either one. But it seems like MMC is the way to go because of the leverage. So you get 2x your performance. Mike P, I understand what the P 1 minus P attack is, but what is unclear to me is why the analytics of Madmin's model have shown the model itself is not particularly interesting, just some linear combination of a few features. Isn't that model the highest optimization level with tournament metric? That's a little hard to read, but what I think is being asked is, how is that model any good if it's only doing a couple of things? Well, I don't know. But if it's just a linear combination of a few features, perhaps they're pulling on the strongest features and they're working right now. I think it could just be the regime.
Yeah, it's not a good model. So it's not like a sign, oh, that's what you should do. Try to use few features. It'll give you a high variance model, and if you have two such high variance models, then one of them will do well and one of them will do badly. But it's not really like a good long-term thing to be doing.
Yeah, and I think that goes to my point about if you can see that in the backtest, why not just like chuck the model out and be like, no, this is garbage, don't submit something like this again? Because I think that would be informative. And personally, I would appreciate that. Like if one of my new models is really shitty and you just kick it back and say, no, do it again. Like don't stake on this either because you're gonna lose your money. Like that would be helpful and probably help everybody.
We do give feature exposure, in the validation when you upload. And so for sure, Madmin and MadMax, they can see that their exposure is pretty insane. And they know what they're doing. But we don't want to necessarily ban someone from making a model that doesn't have the right qualities because we don't really know what the right qualities are. That's kind of the point.
Thanks again. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.